Well, it might not look like much yet, but this is going to be a refrigerator for the dollhouse. Stay tuned and see how we get it this far this week. Alright, to make this a little easier, I have once again produced a PDF. This week there's 2 pages. There'll be another file for next week. So this is part 1. The first step is to always measure your 1-inch square. And I've already measured my test square, and it measures an inch. And I'm going to cut out all of these pieces and separate them. And then I'll be back and we'll start working on our refrigerator. Alright, I've cut apart all my pattern pieces, and all of these, the first step is the same on all of them, and then I'll go into, after we do this step, I'll go into what we do differently with some. Then I have cut, this is just a family-sized Cheez-It box. This was a good-sized box. We probably won't use all of it, but I cut it into individual panels. It just makes it a little easier. And I have my double stick tape. Now my double stick tape I buy at Dollar Tree because I know this stuff, when you buy the Scotch brand, can get pretty expensive. This stuff from Dollar Tree works just fine. Now, doesn't matter what direction you put these, there's no grain to paper. And just like last week, we are going to stick tape on the back and tape these down. And all of these need to be done. So I'm going to, well, I'll go ahead and do the first one, and then I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm going to get all the rest of the pieces cut out. And I just use my scissors for this step. Since I have the pattern lines, it makes it really simple. If you have scraps of your box, be sure and save them. You might be able to use them for another project, as long as they're big enough to use. Also depends on how many of these boxes your household generates. If you go through a lot of cereal and cracker boxes, probably not as important to save every scrap. If you don't go through very many, then you might want to. Just make sure you're using a good sturdy box, not something really thin, and not for this project. I find Bisquick boxes are quite a bit heavier, so I don't use those for this. I do save them though. For some projects they're perfect. So I've got this cut out. I'm going to do the same with all of these. Get them cut out. I will, well, when I come back, I'll show you how to cut that center divider down to the right size. So I'm going to go take care of this. When I get all these cut out, I'll be back and we'll get to the next step. Alright, I have all those pieces cut. I do have some little cuts to make that I'll make with a knife. And I recommend you keep everything in a plastic tub. It makes doing this so much easier. And I ran out of my double-sided tape, so I had to use a permanent tape runner to finish this up. So hopefully I can still get these all off when I need to. Now, the bottom and the top pieces have little corners to cut out. I'm going to use my craft knife for that. It's easier to do this with a knife than with scissors. And I'm off a little on that one, so oops, I set my ruler under my thing there. It was off just a tiny bit when I cut that. I will admit I was watching a YouTube video while I was cutting. Come on. Because I want this cut perfect. There. Okay, go over your cuts, make sure everything looks good. Do the same thing on the bottom with these little bits. And now we're going to work with the center divider. We're going to need this piece pretty quickly. Now, first I need to get the top cut more straight. I didn't quite get that cut to the line. That's better. Now, take a knife, because we need these little slots. This is the part that is going to separate. I don't need this out quite this far on this. This is what's going to separate your refrigerator from your freezer on your side-by-side refrigerator freezer. I made a side-by-side because that's what's in my kitchen, so I could kind of look at it and get an idea of how it went together and what I wanted to do, what were the important features. I mean, obviously this is not exactly like the real thing. And I know somebody's going to ask, this is going to be either a 2 or a 3-week tutorial. I'm not sure which. On my prototype that I made up to make sure all my pieces fit and this was working, I'm about 95% done. All I have is the details, the finishing details. And depending on how in-depth those get. Now, take your knife and go from one cut to the other. We need these little slots. Then we're going to turn it over, go from the other end. And we're going to take out each of these. It's really important that you get this space out exactly as it's marked. These little spaces, we need them to mark this week, but then next week we are going to use, these are going to support our supports for our shelves. On the back. If you look on the back, you can see what you need to cut, and sometimes it's easier to cut from the back on this stage. And I know this part isn't very exciting, but we need to get it done. This needs to be gotten out of here because alright, now that everything is trimmed and push all those little bits off, we're going to separate our pieces by how they're going to be done. The doors need to be put to the side. These are all going to be done the same. And the back covers are going to go back in our tub to be used later. We're going to use one this week and then the rest next week. Now, I need to locate where I put my glue stick. I've got one of those glue sticks that is purple when it's wet and then turns clear. I like to use this kind of glue stick because I can tell what I'm doing. Now with the center divider only, spread glue stick on. It's okay if you're messy because put on the spread glue stick on the wrong side and stick this onto some more of your cardboard box. Put that off to the side to dry. It needs to dry flat. That piece is just, we're just doing that. Now, get out a piece of foam core. And I think, so that it'll be easier for me to work, I am going to slice off approximately this much of my foam core. Doesn't have to be cut perfectly. This will waste some of my foam core, but it will be easier to get it under camera. If I was working not on camera, I would have the whole sheet of foam core here, but the camera would be in the way of it. Alright, now, again, we're going to put the doors in our box. because they are going to be done. We're going to treat them later. We're doing basically the same thing with them, but I don't want them to get mixed up with the rest of this stuff. So, these pieces, this is what we're going to work with first. Should have brought a piece. There's a piece. Glue stick again. I like and this has got to be a permanent bond. This is going to stay glued together. So we need to make sure that we are glued really well. Side 1 and side 2. The back. And I'll probably go ahead and glue the doors on down here at the end. I need to keep them separate so they don't get glued into place. They are not going to be installed yet, but they're going to be, we're going to do them. Now our top and our bottom. Again, our top will get it constructed, but it will not be installed on our refrigerator this week. It's one of the later steps. All right. Our bottom. And I cut this a little crooked, so I'm going to have to make sure I cut it really straight on the next step. That's okay because that's not going to show. The cereal box is not going to actually show in the final design. It's going to be covered. All right. Now I am going to go ahead and put my doors down here because I've got room for them. Wasn't going to cut them out until later, but since I've got room on this piece of foam core, I will. They are not going to be put onto our refrigerator until the end of our project. All right. And it doesn't matter that that's upside down. All right, now these pieces need to get dry before we cut them out because we are going to cut around them when I get back. So this glue needs to dry so they don't move around, and when that's dry, I'll be back. All right, my glue's had time to dry, so I'm going to start by cutting out this one. And now we're just going to cut these out. Try to stay right along where you cut before. And if my fingers have picked up any purple tint while I was off camera, it's because I went and picked blackberries. And while my glue was drying, I think I got it all off, but I'm not sure. So anyway, now we're going to cut these little notches out again. It's really important we cut these out every time. It's too hard to cut through multiple layers of material. Other side. Yeah, these little slots, I know they're kind of a pain to cut out, but they are really important, and it's really important to keep them at the size that I designed them because they will hold this all together just right. Come on. There we go. Now, we're just going to cut around these. And again, we've got our paperboard to cut right up against. I like to cut all one direction. I like to cut, whoops, that did not stay right next to there. I like to make the cuts towards myself, that way I can, I have better control. Cutting across, it's too hard to see what you're doing and you're more apt to make mistakes. Now this one I need to fix. Because like I said earlier, I accidentally cut that a little off when I cut it out. But as you saw there, it's really easy to fix at this stage. Now, well, I think you see what I'm doing. I'm going to turn the camera off, get these all cut out and cut free of this, and then we'll go to the next step. All right, now at this point, put your two door pieces over in your tub because we're not working with those right now. What we are going to do is pull out a sheet of our poster board. This is the same poster board package I had last week. I'm down to just a couple of sheets, and there were 5 sheets in here for $1 at Dollar Tree. I'm going to use the shinier part, the shinier side in, so I'm going to go to the dull side, and I'm going to kind of wipe this off. Now, including this piece, this is our center divider. For this one, we are going to now glue our center divider That is really messy, but that's okay. The glue will cut away when we... And don't put these too close together. I realize we're wasting some poster board, but it is cheap and we need room to cut so that we can make good cuts. You know, both of our sides. And I do love this glue that stays purple while it's wet. It makes this job so much easier to make sure you have a really good coat. Our back. And our top and our bottom. We're gluing the foam core side down. We're making a sandwich. The foam core is the filling in our sandwich. The paperboard is on one side, and our poster board is the other. And the foam core is right in the middle. This needs to set to the side while it dries. While that's drying, we can do one more thing. We can pull out those doors now. The doors need to go this direction. So door 1 will be on your doll's left when they reach into the refrigerator. This will be the freezer side. Door 2 is on the right, and that's the refrigerator. So I have 2 of these cocktail straws. It doesn't matter what color they are. I had a package of all white ones, and I don't know what I did with that. And I somehow lost the top to my glue the other day. And I need my scissors back. We are going to line this up, and we're going to cut it just a hair shorter than our door. Very important which side of the door you put this on. I guess it doesn't matter because they can be turned over, but you're going to put one on this side so that when they stand up together, they are correct. And somewhere on my table, I have a ceramic tile. I'm going to lay these on my ceramic tile so I don't accidentally glue them to my cutting mat. The outside edge of this one, again on this, oops, I didn't trim this first. And you could probably trim this after the fact if you forget. It's just a little easier to trim it now. Nice bead of tacky glue. This is part of our hinge. Line that straw up. And now this glue needs to dry. Come back a couple of times while your glue is setting up to make sure that that is staying pretty much centered on the door, straight, and it's up tight against the door. So all this glue needs to dry now, and when it's dry, I'll be back and we can go to the next steps. Alright, so our glue is dry, so I'll cut out a couple here on camera and then I'll turn the camera off and finish. But once again, all we are going to do, be sure you keep your knife straight up and down. And if it starts to drag, that means it's time for a fresh blade. So I'm going to cut out all of these pieces. When I get them all cut out, we'll go on to the next step. Alright, now the next thing we're going to do, this center divider needs to have poster board put on this side too. So I'm going to peel off the label, put it off to the side, and go ahead and spread them off to the side onto some scrap over here that I don't care if I get glue on. And now this piece will need to dry. While that's drying, oh, I think I forgot to bring a paintbrush. I gotta go get a paintbrush so we can move on. Alright, so I've gathered up some sticks, and what I've got 2, 4, 6, I've got 7 skinny sticks. It's about all the skinny sticks I could find. I may need more next week, but we're going to paint these. And this is a piece of, as best I can tell, a 16th by 16th inch square wood. And you could use white craft paint. I happen to have the white eggshell finish paint that we had on hand for the corner room box. So I'm going to use it. And what I'm doing, I'm going to paint these. The back side doesn't need to be painted, but 3 sides do, both edges and the front. Try not to get lumps on it, but try to cover all the wood on those sides. So I'm going to turn the camera off. We all know how to paint. I'm going to turn the camera off and get these pieces painted, and then when they're dry, I'll come back and we can go on to the next step. Alright, so we're going to put our painted wood pieces off to the side, and we're actually going to go on back to our center divider, which has some kind of little gluey crud on it. So I'm going to cut it out. This is the only piece that will be done with poster board on both sides. Because the poster board is what's going to finish the inside of our refrigerator and freezer. We're actually going to use cardstock as our final cover on our outside. And once again, I am being very careful that I keep these as close. Oops. This knife, the little doohickey that's supposed to lock the blade, does not work. I don't know what that crud is. I think it's a little blob of glue. Excuse me. Now we're going to take our 2 side pieces. We're going to line this up. Now the deepest, the top is the tiniest, is the smallest. The deepest is this side. This is the side of the sidewall, the edge of the sidewall, that's going to go against the back. before we glue that on, I want to go through with a very sharp pencil and I'm marking the bottom of these slots. It's really important that you mark the bottom on both sides of this divider. Flip it over. We're going to have to make sure that we keep this oriented the right way now. It's really important. There. Now, those are going to glue to the sides of this. Before we go on, we're going to do a couple more markings. This is our back. Our sides are approximately 1/4 inch thick. We need to make a mark 1 1/4 inches from this edge. And once I get this laid out, and I recommend getting a white eraser, whether it's one that's on your pencil or it's separate. White eraser does a lot better job of getting things off without leaving a mark. And we're going to do that same 1 1/4 inch mark on the poster board side of the bottom. And that needs to be put to the side now. So this is my top, this is the top, this is the bottom. It's going to stand like this. This is 1 1/4 inches from this side. Now, I need my glue. Whoops. We don't need our doors yet. Those markings are a lot easier to make now than they will be later. Come on. The side that has the markings closest to it is the one you're going to put the glue on. And I'm actually going to need my tile. Get these painted sticks off of my tile. I don't want to take a chance on gluing this to my cutting board. The other side, the same way. And before that glue dries, now it's really important that the notches on the bottom are towards the front. I'm going to stand this upside down. I've got the bottom edge up here. Putting glue on the bottom. Glue this, line this up so everything is lined up. These sides are lined up and the back is lined up. And those little notches should be just a tiny bit in front of your sides. Make sure this is sitting just where you want it. Everything's nice and straight. There's no big gobs of glue. And this needs to dry thoroughly before we go on to the next step. Alright, so our glue is set up. So now we are going to rim the bottom of this. And what we're going to do, I like to have this laying on its back. And actually, I'm going to lay it this way. Lay it on its front. I take that back. Because we need to have this even with the front. So drawing a line there. Is that, now which side was that? It's this one. So this one goes there. We're going to do the same thing over here. Now we are going to glue these to the edge of our foam core. Come on. And on this side also. Now, while that's laying down, I'm going to take another one of these and I'm going to make a line. We need a bit of glue on the front of each of these, and we need glue all along the front. And that's what it should look like. You should have a little tiny square or shape in front of that that's rimmed by that. Now that glue needs to dry, and while that's drying we can go ahead and work on this. On one side, this is our center divider. I didn't get this painted all the way to the end, so we need to cut these this long. So I'm going to cut, and this is, I believe, 1.5 inches. We need 3 of these. Now once again, we need to be really sure that we know which is the top and which is the bottom on this. This is the top. We are going to glue these right below those little slots. It's really, really important that these go below the slots. And I probably should be putting glue on this, not on there. We want them just directly below that. And when this glue is dry, I'm going to turn it over and do the exact same thing on the other side of the center divider. Once again, making sure they are lined up with the bottom of those slots. And when the glue is all dried, then I will go through and touch up the ends of the paints on this. So that needs to dry, that needs to dry, and when those are dry and I get the other side of this done, I'll come back and we'll put some sticks inside. Alright, so now we have those glued on both sides, and this is set up enough we can work with it. Now these lines that we drew in there, I'm trying to figure out what is going to be the best angle for you guys to see what I'm doing. Let's see. maybe like this. So I've cut 6 more of these pieces, and I'm going to run glue on the back side. They're the same size as the ones I put on the center divider, which is the width of the center divider, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is 1.5 inches. Now, just a little bit of glue, just enough that it will stick. And those lines are going to be our marks to put this right below. Make sure that you can still see the line. There. And we're going to do that on all 6. And because I'm using tacky glue, these shouldn't slide at all. So I'm going to go ahead and do all 6 of these. And when the glue's dry, we'll touch up the paint and go on to the next step. Alright, now we need to cut this. So I'm going to lay this right here. We need to cut 2 pieces of skinny stick that just fit into the opening. Oh, actually we need 3. So I'm going to do 1 more piece. I can probably get that off here. So, remember we're going to need 3 more. Put these 3 in first. Make sure they fit. Yes, they do. That's not one of my pieces. There. We've got 3 there. Now, this piece, we're going to test it first to make sure it's going to fit. And yes, you see that? That's exactly where that goes. And I put that line in the wrong place. I just noticed that. Wow. Okay, that's not very useful. So, how the heck did I do that? Okay. We need to measure that again. Not sure how I managed to measure that wrong, but I did. So, we need this mark. Let's see if I can get this where you guys can see and I can see. Since I don't have this where I can get my ruler into it anymore, I'm going to have to use this. Not sure how I managed to mark that on the wrong side. We'll pretend I didn't do that. Okay, now lines are lined up. We have the line, continuous line there. We are going to cut 3 more pieces of skinny stick, that same length. That one is not quite long enough to cut off because I won't be able to get a nice straight edge if it's that close to the end. There it is. So in total, you need 6 pieces cut the width of the inside opening in the refrigerator. Now I'm going to put some glue down. I managed to lose the lid to my glue the other day. That one is a little tight. And I don't want it quite that tight. There. So I am going to put put some glue just on the ends, just at the bottom of that. If you wanted to make this look a little more finished, you could put glue or paint on the bottoms of these also, but I don't think they're going to show much. Now, put this on its back. I managed to knock the paint off there, but I can touch that up later. Now, remember to keep this right side up. The longest space is at the bottom, and these are underneath the openings there. Now, just a little bit of glue on all these spots. And on the bottom. Line that up with that line. Wipe off any excess glue with a wet wipe, because I did get a little glue out here. Now, these guys. Need to go in there. Next week, these are going to be what we glue our shelves to. So I've got another piece that's going to have the paint touched up, but that's okay, I can touch up paint. Now, that glue needs to dry. When that glue is dry, we'll come back, we'll touch up all that paint, and move on to the next steps. Alright, so we have our top, and I was holding off on this in case I didn't have enough skinny stick left, but I have just enough. So I'm going to glue this around just like I did the bottom. I'm going to cut. This length happens to be just right for the side. I'm going to cut this one down so that it fits these two spots. I'm going to glue it down and put it together, and then I'll be back. Alright, before we go any further, we're going to touch up our paint. And that's going to include all these ends of these little sticks we cut. We don't need to worry about the front of this divider. That will be covered. All the fronts of those, and I see I missed a piece of this skinny stick. Anything towards the front that you can see really clearly, I wouldn't worry about the ones back here. And this is the bottom, so we don't need to worry about that. So I am going to, I'll show you what I'm going to do. And I've got the tiniest paintbrush I could find. This is, it just says fine on it. Very carefully so you don't touch the interior poster board. You don't want to get paint on it. But any place that you see breaks in your paint. And this shouldn't take very long to dry. You remember, you could be using craft paint, it's just it doesn't have the nice. This is an eggshell finish, so it has a little bit of a gloss. And if I sound odd, it's because it's first thing in the morning and I haven't even had my coffee yet, but I want to get this recorded. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to touch up those spots. When this paint is dry, I'll be back and we'll go on to the next step. Alright, so our next step is going to be covering this center section. I've got some more of this 16th by 16th, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what size this is, to tell you the truth. I'm going to measure it so it fits along that spot. And then I need to find my cutter. And I need to run some glue Really wishing I hadn't lost the lid to my glue bottle. I have no idea where it is. Now make sure that this, if there's any side that doesn't have as good a coat of paint on, it goes towards that. Now this glue needs to dry. I'm going to see where I'm going to have to clip that on or hold it. And I've got a little bit of glue drippage there. I'm going to wipe off glue that's spilling out. I'm going to be holding this for a while and then find some way to clamp it. So when that's dry, we will go on, we'll go on to our next step. Alright, now we're going to cover the doors. My refrigerator is going to be an all-white refrigerator. That's what I felt like doing. I'm using this premium cardstock. It's 65 pound. It's a smooth texture one. I got this at the craft store. It's not very expensive. It's heavy enough to use to cover this and make a good looking exterior on my refrigerator. Same thing's going to cover the main body and everything else. If you want color other than white, this comes in a rainbow of colors. You can get any color you want. It's up to you. I like white. So I've cut two pieces, and yes, they are oversized. I'd rather waste a little paper than come up short. So now is the time to take off our label there. This piece is cut 6 inches tall by 4 inches wide. That will allow me to be able to trim off some extra paper. Now I'm going to cover one side of my refrigerator door with glue stick. I'm going to put this pretty close to the middle, and I'm going to let this dry. I found that this was where I made mistakes on my prototype. This needs to be, and I'm putting the that side down. That's fine. It doesn't matter on this because we're going to cover both sides. Again, in the middle. And this piece for the small freezer door is 6 inches by 3 inches. Now this glue needs to dry because we don't want this to move. And when this is all dry, I'll come back and we'll do some scoring, some folding, and some cutting. Alright, so my glue's been drying for a while. Now, we need to be very careful where we score and where we cut on this. These doors are fit, I've designed them to fit really, really closely in the refrigerator door opening. So you're going to have to be really careful. Now the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cut the paper from the edge of the door and around. Right there. And I'm going to get both of these done, and I will take a photo of this so that you can see it closely on the blog. Oops. Alright. I'm going to do it on both. I'll do the one door on camera, and then before I do the second one off camera, I'll take some photos as I go. Now, actually, let's see, I think I'm going to cut it at an angle. Oops. One angle cut there. Alright. Now, with the back side of my blade, I am going to score right where the foam core ends on the 3 sides, not on the side with the straw. We're actually going to roll, kind of make that roll around. Alright, now that actually, oops, and I did not get that square. Alright. Now double check that you're getting a flat fold right against the foam core there. This is really, really important. Did I score that yet? There's a little bit of an edge there. I don't think I scored that one. And note, I am using the back of my blade to do this. This needs to be really flat. You can't have any extra paper folded over, especially top and bottom. Now I'm going to glue the top and the bottom pieces. And keep an eye on this, that it stays folded down tight. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have this part tight against the door. Let me get this one. And it's okay if it doesn't cover the corner. We're going to go around the edge later. So I'm going to let this glue dry. I am going to do this one off camera and get some photos for you for the blog. And when this glue is dry, I'll be back and we'll deal with the other side of our doors. Alright, so our doors are now covered. We're going to put a piece of paper around the edge, so that's fine, and we're going to cover the whole back side. So now we need to glue this part down. Once again, glue stick. Coat it really well, although we are going to cover it on the back with a piece of poster board later. And as tight against the straw as you can, and leave that to dry. Same on this side. Alright, so these are now glued down with glue stick. They just need to dry, and I think that's as far as we're going to go this week. Be sure and come back next week when we will finish up the inside and put the covering on the outside of the refrigerator. I hope you're enjoying this project. Be sure and check the blog post for that link to the PDF so you can work along with me. If you haven't found the Facebook group, I really encourage you to do that. I post some sneak peek photos over there quite often, and it is the quickest way to get a hold of me. And I will talk to you later. Bye.